So the lesson plan I'm going to go over is one that I actually made last, during the summer semester for another class, and it's an economics lesson plan. I'm just going to kind of walk through it here at the beginning, and then I'm going to go over just the rubric as far as like what technology I use and what it allows students to do in regards to engagement, enhancement, and extending learning goals. So first I'm going to kind of walk through the lesson plan though. Basically the whole goal of this, the lesson title is using market indicators to compare / contrast standards of living. The whole goal of this lesson is to get students to see that previous knowledge that we learned before this activity, like GDP and how it's a number and what that number is made up of. But really what the goal of this is to see, okay, now that we know the number and what it means, what does that actually look like? Like, what does that visually look like with countries that typically have low GDPs per capita and those that have higher GDPs per capita? So one of the technology tools that I used here, and I'm going to get my drawing tool open here. Is Dollar Street. And it's a website, and I'll kind of go over that quickly here, just to kind of show what it looks like after I'm done talking about this here. So on Dollar Street, they have a ton of different videos, almost like mini biographies of families in different countries throughout the world, and depending on how much household income they have per year and kind of what their living situation's like in those countries. So I'll kind of show that here in just a second. But again, it's kind of what does GDP actually visually look like, but also going over those concepts of free market, command market, and mixed economies. We also use the CIA World Factbook, which is kind of a cool thing. It's really just numbers. It's pretty interesting, but it's numbers. So again, those numbers are cool and all, but I really want them to get the visual aspect of Dollar Street. And that's kind of what the whole goal is, again, is to get that visual aspect. So I'm going to kind of exit out of the drawing tool here for a second so I can move down. So some of the tools that we use in here are, again, CIA World Factbook. They have a worksheet. It's a comparative systems worksheet. So they compare the United States, North Korea, and the country of Chad in Africa. And they compare quality of life, life expectancy, of course, GDP, military spending, all of that kind of ties into quality of life in the end that they get to see on this website after they do that. And that's kind of the one that I really want to focus on with this assignment here is Dollar Street while I'm evaluating this. So I'll go over the lesson description really quick. It says, while exploring the CIA World Factbook, please find the data necessary to complete the data tables in regards to the countries listed on the comparative systems worksheet. So North Korea, the United States, and Chad. I won't pull that worksheet up right now necessarily, but it's basically just like a data table. I'll do this the best I can here. Where it has the countries, and then it has a bunch of different things that they're trying to find, right? So if we have the US right here, sorry, it's kind of hard to use the drawing tool here, North Korea, and then I'll put a C for Chad. They have to find various bits of data for each of these countries. Like I said earlier, life expectancy, I mean, even everything from how much kids a mother typically has in a country, all of that we can kind of relate to GDP, just that number. So again, that's just kind of reinforcing the importance of that number before they actually see what it looks like. So after filling in the necessary, you should be able to see a large difference not only in economic data, but also standard of living categories. So the goal of these steps is to quantitatively see differences between economic systems and countries. Your next step will be completing the standards of living in different countries worksheet by viewing the Dollar Street website. On this website, you won't find the specific numbers and data sets as you saw on the CIA World Factbook, but you will see how those numbers look when we put people's faces to them. So it's actually kind of cool here. And I'll go over that again just a second. So students will be assessed by the teacher reviewing the completed Google Docs/worksheets. Also, while I'm doing this, I kind of walk around. Obviously, this is a small group activity, and I'm kind of walking around, always making sure that students are finding everything okay. A lot of times they have, on that CIA World Factbook site, they have trouble finding some things. So it's always important for me to just circulate around and make sure they're doing that okay. And usually they can find those things pretty quickly. So after assessing group work, students will be asked to complete essay responses on what certain economic indicators measure, and more importantly, what certain economic indicators indicate about quality of life differences among people in the world, and how specific market systems can lead to those outcomes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and show Dollar Street here. Pull that up on the screen. It's actually a really cool website by Gapminder. So we're going to go ahead and switch to homes in the world by income per month. So this is really where they get to kind of see that visual aspect of GDP, of all those numbers that they just looked up with Dollar Street. Dollar Street's really cool because not only do they get to kind of choose some of the countries. I usually give them a list they can choose from, but as you can see, they can kind of choose whatever countries they want to. That's where that essay response part comes in, when they kind of get to see, okay, a country like, let's see, if we scroll down a little bit, Haiti, who has a really low GDP, per capita, or India, what the difference is. And I'll kind of click on one of these so you can kind of see the videos and stuff. They're just real short videos, and they often give a short description of the family who lives in those. Again, just a really short biography of the family. So if you hit visit this family, it'll kind of come up with some additional pictures and little clips, almost little GIFs of how they do things. I mean, basic things like brushing teeth, carrying water. And we get to talk about extending the learning. We get to talk about, you don't have to do this here, or in countries typically that have high GDP per capita. You don't have to carry water, or the way we even do dishes, or our drinking water, what that looks like, or what it looks like with our hands. It's really interesting to kind of see this. Playing with most loved toy, right? I mean, so you can kind of just see already, it's a pretty cool extension of learning. They really get to see other things that aren't even really required of them to see, but it's pretty cool website to use. I won't dwell too much on that website there, but I did want to show you that so you could kind of see the purpose of this activity, which is to visually see what GDP looks like and the differences of it look like in between countries. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of evaluate this. I pulled up the EEE evaluation rubric by Liz Kolb. I'm going to go ahead and get my drawing tool open here, working on limited space, so it's kind of cramped. All right, there we go. So really, I'm just going to focus on, for the most part, Dollar Street. I'm not really going to focus a whole lot on the CIA World Factbook. I think that tool's a little more familiar with individuals. I can talk about that a little bit, but I really want to focus with the Dollar Street one. I think that one might be a little newer, so I want to focus on talking about that when I'm evaluating. So, engagement and learning. The technology allows students to focus on the assignment, activity, or goals with less distraction. I would say somewhat. And the reason I would say somewhat is because I would say this actually leads to good distractions with some of those other things that they can look up. So I almost want to put a yes, but since they can get distracted with other things, although I think those things are good, I would put somewhat. This technology motivates students to start the learning process. I absolutely think so, and know so with my experience working with this activity. Once they get on Dollar Street, it's like the whole activity becomes fun and engaging all of a sudden. So it's a good in that regard. The technology causes a shift in the behavior of the students, where they move from passive to active social learners. Absolutely. When we're talking about, especially prior to the lesson with GDP, and they're getting that background information, I would say that's more of like a passive, where now that they're in Dollar Street, they're extremely active. They're basically deciding what they want to look at, kind of what they want to learn with their countries outside of the required material. So enhancement. The technology allows students to develop or demonstrate a more sophisticated understanding of the learning goals or content. Absolutely. Again, you get to visually see that. Beyond that, it adds an empathetic piece to it, or I guess a compassionate piece to it, where students really start to see, wow, this number we've been learning about, this is a really big deal, and we get to visually see that now. So I absolutely think they demonstrate a more sophisticated understanding, even on an emotional level. I think that makes it really cool. The technology creates supports to make it easy to understand concepts or ideas. I would say somewhat. It definitely allows them to differentiate. Like I said, they can kind of choose what they're interested, or personalize, I should say. They kind of get to choose what they're interested in. As far as like scaffolding is concerned, I don't know if I would completely say yes. There's a lot of different things they can look at on that website, but I don't know if I would completely say yes with scaffolding. The technology creates paths for students to demonstrate their understanding of the learning goals in a way that they could not do with traditional tools. Absolutely. There's no way they could gain that compassion. There's no way they could visually see the differences. I mean, they could look up images and things like that, but Dollar Street just offers a way more personal inside look at kind of the goal of this activity. Extending the learning goals. So the technology creates opportunities for students to learn outside of their typical school day. It could. They're not required to. I think if it's an opportunity, I almost want to put my check mark, sorry if this gets confusing, like right here. If they wanted to, they could. So technically, and there's so much on there. It is a 24/7 connection. I don't require them to do anything outside of school with this though, so I don't know. Maybe I'll put my check mark right there in the yes column. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this other one here. There we go. Go back to this. The technology creates a bridge between students' school learning and their everyday life experiences. This is tricky for me. When it says their everyday life experiences, oops, sorry, let me get out of that. I zoomed in a little bit. When it says their everyday experiences, I don't know. I think so, somewhat, because it allows them to kind of bridge their life with somebody else in a different part of the world's life. That's a tough one for me. I'm gonna say somewhat on that one, and I accidentally put that in the wrong. There we go. I deleted my other drawings, but I'll go back and edit that. Okay, so the technology allows students to build authentic life soft skills, which they can use. Yes, absolutely. This is a group collaborative project. They're seeing the differences. They're talking through those differences. They're seeing they're comparing their standard of living with others' standard of living. I mean, they're having to talk through and create a structured, what I would say, higher order and critical thinking answer in those essay questions regarding on what they've not only seen numbers wise with CIA World Factbook, but visually with Dollar Street. I would absolutely say this is a 100% awesome soft skill kind of critical thinking exercise. So that's kind of my evaluation here with this, and I'll kind of exit